right, guys, how we doing? Sam here with you. It's Monday. It's the 21st of January here. It seems like a reasonable time to give a visit back to Bitcoin, see if we can get some insight into where we are here. And if nothing else, perhaps consider some alternates and challenge some of the assumptions that have been made throughout the course of this range that we've been stuck in. So I'm over here on Bitfinex. Now, we're going to look at it on two different exchanges here. But as we sit here, just to stay consistent with what we've been looking at, you know, it's certainly, given this, the pump up that we had that broke the idea of a triangle, and then the, of course, pump up, pump down. You know, so it's very tempting to look at this and just go, oh, so ABC is right to a 50. What's the problem? Right? Isn't that the same thing we look at all the time? Well, certainly we have, this is an algo play that we can't ignore, right? So that is certainly in play, and no reason to anticipate that they won't get that target. Now, we're essentially double bottoming down here. So as has been the case so many times here, double bottom, double top, double bottom, false break, unconfirmed wave. Bitcoin just is it's almost bipolar here. We just can't get any commitment from bulls or bears on either side. So it's really just chewing everybody out, which is why my suggestion continues to be wait for clarity rather than try and anticipate something. It's got to be the 3. Let's get some clarification here. Let's get a count that confirms, and we just don't have it yet. So this is certainly a reasonable target to have here from the pivot here. So again, we don't have to wonder what happened here. Now we know algorithms sold here, and they've got this as their target. So if that comes down here and we do complete here, let's go back to a 30. If that completes, well, there's still a very reasonable case to be made here that this was an impulsive move up, that we've got a 3-wave correcting it. So if that's A, B, and we're going to go down here and get this for the C, that's potentially our B wave before we go up to the larger degree C. Right? So A, B, C, we go up, and then we're looking for the potential 4th that would start the last leg down, or potentially now the last swing down to complete the entire bear move. Right? So still cannot eliminate that, but it's sure is tough to get a count that fits with that based on, so there's some symmetry issues here that we've got to recognize here that are at play, and just the difficulty of getting a clear count here and getting something that's clean. So if we come back to this, recognizing that this ABC still could very well be in play, I think you got to back up and start looking at a couple of assumptions that are being made. So first, just to revisit this briefly, my view is that this is too far, that the symmetry here is all wrong. And I went over this on Saturday. That a 1, 2, 3, 4, the size of the 4 relative to the 2 seems less likely. How about I say it that way, right? So again, right, certainly possible, but that seems less likely. My premise is that what we've done here is we've completed, because there is a count here that allows for this to complete. 3 down, little triangle there, and then we come down, then we get our 5 of the 3 here. Oh, shit, come here. Still to this day, have never once even considered the idea of why I would want to move on that. So, right, that's my own little issue with trading views. So I have the potential for, so this 4 would be over here. This would have completed now, right? So 1, 2, I've got all the subdivision here. Now, same problem, right? Ugly finish, right? We've talked about that before. It's not a great 5, but it's, you know, it's what we have to work with. So so this, now having broken this low, we can lean into this as a corrective ABC. And right, as we just showed, it's right to a 50. So this part, right, looks reasonable, and as though this 3 corrects this 5. So if we make the, I'm going to use the word, if we make the assumption that this has completed a 5 wave and this ABC is correcting it, well, that is rather ugly for bulls, because that would imply here that in the best case scenario that this is 1, 2, right? And we're going way down for 3, 4, and 5. But if you start to put that in the context of everything else we have here, it gets even more bearish. So I think we got to come back here and challenge a few assumptions that have been made here. Now this, because it's complete, because this bit is complete here, come here. So if I go here to this A, this B, this C, I think we're fairly solid here. I've got a corrective structure, and it would appear that this 5, this 3 has corrected this 5. Now look at the symmetry here. If we look at this 5 relative to this 5, I mean, they look almost identical, right? Very shallow 2, we go, well, pardon me, kind of a squirrely 1. It looks more like an ABC into the 1. So ABC, it's tough to get it here. Right, but the 3 is solid, the 4, and then we get this ugly 5. Well, it looks very similar here. 1, 2, we get the 3, 4, and then again, this same sort of just dumping 5. So because this looks so much like this, that was where the idea was there as a contender that we were done here. But now with this break, you've got to consider the alternate. So if we lean into the idea that this 3 wave is done and that it's correcting this 5, well, we got to back up and say, well, where does that put us in the larger count? Well, the big assumption that we've made off of this low is that this was, that as we get up here, because the subdivision is so clear, that we've got a completed A wave, right? And to a large degree, that's influenced equally by the sense of symmetry. Right, so if let me back up here. So if I come out, let's see. So if I look here, if this is a 5-wave structure, right? Now this wick is unique to Bitfinex where it was so extreme, but we can see if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The assumption has been that that's not enough. That's not enough time has passed within that for that to be a complete correction. So thus we've been thinking A, B, C to get up here before we head down for the larger degree. Well, given how difficult the count is down here and the lack of confirmation of either direction, I think you have to consider the alternate here. So if we dig into this wave here, so let's see, I've got it over here. Let's see, let's do it here. So let me go back down to that 30-minute, and let's dig into that a little bit. So the first thing I did was kind of just back up and say, all right, wait a minute, let's count all the 5s and 3s. So can I back into this? Well, if I work off the low here, I've got a very consistent set of 5s and 3s. So I can go 1, 2. I get a clear 5 here, clear 3 here, clear 5, ABC, clear 5, ABC. And then I get this, what I think is fairly solid here. I think this is finishing something. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we get an ending diagonal here, and it's pretty much, you know, the possibility the 3 is here and we get an expanded flat in the 4. So it's pretty much a textbook ending diagonal into this pivot here. So this is completing something. And our assumption has been, because of this being a candidate for the 4, that this is completing the 5 of the A. But now come back over here. All right, if we work through this, the 5s and the 3s, there's an alternate here that we have to consider. Now I've got it. Where do I have it here? So here it is here. So I had to just kind of back into this. So if we work backwards on the assumption that this is completing something, there's an alternate here that is, I just did this very briefly on Twitter, but with more detail, and not trying to do it in 2 minutes. If I work off of this low, so you can see, so let me outline it here. So from this low, I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it takes advantage of all the impulses that are in there. Right, let's get rid of that. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's a contender, right, for what could have been the 1, 2 if we were going to go higher. But it certainly is a contender as an A wave. So ABC down here, now this would be very shallow, right? It's right to a 38. That was part of the reason we were considering it a contender for a 4. So this would be a shallow B, no question about it. But there's a little ABC in there. That's a candidate here now. So we could have a zigzag. So I could have 5, 3, 5 into a pivot here. So that's a contender now to have completed an A wave. So let me take this off here since we've already broken through that. So you have this. Let's move this up here. So you have this that's a contender. So I could have 5, 3, 5 into an A wave. So A, B, C down. There's my B. And then I lean back into my diagonal. That potentially finishes my C here. So I've got a candidate here. Now, so if I rework this, all right, so I've got a candidate here now for a 5, 3, 5 into an A, B, C into a B, and then an ending diagonal to give me a C. That implies we've got a contender here for the 4 to be in. Now, I understand it's right. I mean, that was part of what was influencing me, is the length of time here is not, it's not great symmetry relative to the length of time of what preceded it in terms of the size of the move down. This would be an abrupt if the correction is complete here. The symmetry would not be ideal relative for the 4 relative to the 1, 2, and the 3. But I can't eliminate it. And it's certainly not good news for bulls if this is how this is going to break down. Because if this is the 4 and I've got a clear 5 coming down, and then we come back to our agreement here, or at least my supposition here is that I've got an ABC that completes here. Well, if this is 5 down into a 1, and that's an ABC into a 2, and then I follow that with another 5, that implies 1, 2, 1, 2. So that thus, right, much lower prices here. So this 2200 is potentially now just the pivot target for the third, for this to complete the third before we go 4, 5, and now we're challenging $2,000 and potentially heading back down below $2,000. So this is right. It's extremely bearish, right? I can't eliminate this count, right? So. Now, what's making this frustrating is I can't confirm that count either. So there's no way to confirm it, but at least now I have a reasonable alternate here so that if we start to break lower, I now know what's going on and where we are. I know now that this is 1, 2, 1, 2. Now this, again, right, so because this looks so much like this. So and note, what do? Double bottom. Right, just like double top up here. There's just been a series of ugly finishes. So just about the time where you're thinking, oh, I think I've got it, right? So here's A, B. Now we're going for the 3. What do? We run into this pivot and we can't break it. So yet again, right, lack of confirmation. You can't confirm it either way. Right, now we can draw geometry up here, but you can't confirm one side or the other. So they're equally valid. So you've got this contender down here. So 1, 2, 3. Well, we can do same thing we always would. Well, if that's the 1, that's the 2. Well, we've got to make at least 100. Here's the 1, 6, 1, 8, right? So that would suggest potentially now 4, 5. We're going substantially lower. Now we do the same thing for the larger degree. So if that's in as a pivot up here, and that's 1 and that's 2, let's get it right on there. Okay, so I'm going to pull this one off just so so I can look at it right cleanly here now. 3, right, is a candidate now. So if I pull this one off and I think about where that 3 could be going, so I pull from this pivot, come here, length of the 1 projected from the 2. Where's my high probability zone? Well, here's the first one. Here's the extreme. So if we're going to if this is going to go 1, 2, 3, right, if we're going to come here and stay with these median lines, 4, 5, well, that's potentially the 2, 6, 1, 8 of the degree that's higher. So it would potentially look like this. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to complete the third. All right, so this would give us our third here, ABC for the 4, and then we're going down again. All right, so now it's a question of the length of time. God damn it, the length of time that it takes. So we'd pull here for that 4. If this 2 is correctly identified, now I'm hypothetical here. I don't have this, obviously, right? So we look here and think, right? This wouldn't be that unreasonable here to think, oh, A, B, C here, we're between the 23 and the 38, and then I get an algo target down here. Under $2,000, all right? And it's potentially, right, if it's going to stay with that median line, right? Now, again, if I'm purely hypothetical here, we don't know. But that's a roadmap here that just cannot be ignored, right? And that's if that's the 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, how are we going to know? Well, it's Right? Bitcoin just won't give you the confirmation, right? It's just stuck in this range. We can't get clarity one side or the other. So obviously, as regards to trading it, my suggestion continues to be wait for some clarity here. Why with this? It really looks like market manipulation, right? So they bull trap, bear trap. Oh, it's going up. All right, it's time to buy. Oh, it's going down, right? So we run into the double bottom. So they're just, it's just nobody's, unless you're scalping down in the very, very short term. All right, very difficult to make any significant money here because the market is just, we're not trending. We're in a range. All right, so let's consider that. So that's a good segue. So as we sit here in a range, as soon as I see that, then my first thought is go to the wolf range, right? So if we're going to stay in this range, well, let's identify the range. So the first thing I do is just from the swing low to the swing high. All right, now I'm going to, since we've broken the 65 here, I'm going to switch over to the wolf range. So I can identify this range here. Here's my 50% of that range. Now I have the volume profile off just to allow for a little more space on the chart, but let's bring that back here. So we're sitting, here's our point of control. So we look here, so you see these low volume nodes here, right, as we sort of stay in. Here's our point of control. Now, if we're going to retrace again, there's potentially now, this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. We got to break this low so we can get confirmation one way or the other. Now, remember, we still have this as a 50 with an algo target here, but the Elliott count fits better. Again, back to if, heavy emphasis. If that's our 4, this 5's the 1, that 3 corrects it. This 5's the 1, that 3 corrects it. We're in the process of heading down. And that looks to me, if I go to the 15-minute, that sure looks to me like 1, 2, 3, 4 is going in. There's one more drive down. So if I just label it here real quick, looks like there could be 1, 2, 3, 4 going down here for the 5. And now if we put that back, go back to an hourly, that looks like that could just be the 1, right? So if this is 1, 2, 1, 2, that's not enough to be my 3. So that looks like that's just the 1 of the 3 going in. All right, so this is a very bearish read on the market here, and I'm not committed to it, as in I'm not shorting Bitcoin here to see that realized, right? So I rarely will short Bitcoin. But I think in terms of analyzing it here, in terms of where the opportunities are, so you could flip that on its head and say, where are the buy opportunities? Well, until we get a 5 that completes cleanly, and I still wouldn't buy the 5. I'd wait for the first move off of it, first motive off of it, and wait for the retrace. But this is a terribly bearish count. If, right? So how do we know? Well, the first thing that has to happen here, we have to get some clarity as to whether this is going to complete and pivot. So let's get that back to traditional. So if this is going to go down here, we're going to get this. I see, look how that sets up, right? So potentially now, so you look at that and you think, okay, well, the alternate would be that somehow this has become a, I think it's highly unlikely that that's the 4. Highly unlikely, because I can get 5 down here, and because this 5 and this 5 are so similar. I think this is high probability that this is a 2. No, I would love to be wrong. Love to see this come down here and then us just take off, right? I would love to see that. Right? I'm a bull. I hold a lot of Bitcoin. I would love to see that. But right now, I think that is lower probability here than 1, 2. Now, so first thing we got to break this low, right? Which stubbornly, right? We can't get clarity on either side. But if this comes down, we get this, right? In the next 24 hours seems reasonable. We break this. Well, then we can lean a little bit more into this alternate count on the assumption that the 4 is here. So 1, 2, 1, 2. I know it's ugly. It's an ugly count to think we could be going that low, but it sure does. It sure does set up. So the thing that saves the bullish idea here that we could pivot here is because the symmetry is not great here. So if I go back to a 4-hour and reset here. So if we think of it. Let's see if I can do it this way here. So I know you can't see what's in there, but I'm just trying to give you the sense of the symmetry. So let me get rid of all that. So this, let's get rid of that. Okay, so could this be our this 5 coming down? All right, so you got to look at this and say, what does that symmetry look like? Well, if that's 1 and that's 2, that's 3. This is 4. This is 4 here, and we're going down for 5. I'll just finish that there. I'm not trying to get that necessarily to any target down there, but that's what you're looking at. So can I zoom that up here so we can pull that off? That's not unreasonable. Right now, this 2 is longer than this, so we don't get good rule. I actually don't like to use that rule, that word here. The tendency for there to be alternation in the 4. So we have a simple ABC here. Is that complex enough for you? It's not. It's just a zigzag into an ABC. So you wouldn't call this simple followed by complex, unless somehow this is going to get turned into some sort of a failure swing, which I think is just unlikely. So much as I am hesitant because of the length of time of this as a completed 4, boy, the count, it sure plays. All right, so let's hope here now. So I'm gonna pull this off. So really there's 2 ranges here. So we have the larger range that we're stuck in, but we have this secondary range as well, which now here we'll put this back on here. So why do I do this? Because I'm looking for confluence. I'm looking for areas where I get some degree of potential confluence here. So this is the first range here. We're trying to, doubling that range is wait, do I have it here? Oh no, it's got it going up, sorry. So it's going the other directions here. So let me pull it this way. So I gotta go the other way. So if I go this way, there we go. Let's get that there. Okay, so if I look this way, now 100% of that range is down here at 2,000. So then I look at this range here. So this is the range we're stuck in. We can't seem to break out of here, and note, right, the double bottom. So if we're in this range, if we're going to break, well, here's 100% of this range. So if I take this, now 100% down is right here. And that's not too far from what we'd be looking for if we just go with traditional. Right, so if I pull this over, here's my 1618. Right, we're not quite to the tick here down here. So those are 2 ranges to consider. So a breakout of this range means next test will be down here. So here, this is, right, of course, right, so here's 100%. So this range, here's 100% of that range right here. So right, this all suggests there could be lower prices coming here. So then we can just do some, even if we just did a channel like that here, right? Until that breaks, this looks like that's where we're headed. So you can kind of line the whole thing up within that channel as a contender. Nothing wrong with that. It certainly could be. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So this looks like we could be going, right? So if this finishes 3, 4, 5 to get the 3 down there. God, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But there's an alternate that we have to consider. So from an analyst point of view, we can't eliminate this until this starts to break here. Now, if we start to break higher here, we can come back and revisit the idea that we went A, B, C into a B. But until that happens, I continue to think this is path of least resistance, lower to these levels. All right, guys. Well, shit, I'm wrong all the time. So let's hope this is one of those. All right, guys, see you later.